I said I wasn't going to do the play, that is not an excuse for that patchouli stinking tramp to come down here and rifle through my plays and carry one off. I don't care. I want double the guards on the doors from now on. Because if she gets down here again, I always know when she's down here, it stinks of patchouli. You are the one who's going to pay for it. Right? Got it? Good. Hello. Hello. How are you? I have the video for this week. And this week we are finishing off our plays of power with, of course, a queen. A queen. What more could we finish off our plays of power, our stories of power with, but a queen, real power, something I know all about, real power. But before we start, remember, there's the shop, blah, 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 where there are books, blah, 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 and things, blah, 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 blah. There's also Redbubble, blah, 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 blah. Over 100 designs. Like, subscribe, comment, and share, or I'll jump out from under the bed and rip your arms off. So, I have a play about Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. It is George Bernard Shaw's Caesar and Cleopatra. Now, this is actually a fairly old play, and it's a play that seems to have got fallen out of favour. There aren't a lot of contemporary productions. It seems to have really fallen out of favour, which is a bit of a shame, because it's a good play. It's a good play. It's a darn sight better play than that stupid one that the dumb hippie took from me. Darn sight better play. It has a queen in it. Automatically, we're up higher than anything else. It has a queen in it. You all know how I feel about queens. Oh, exactly. So, Caesar and Cleopatra by George Bernard Shaw. And it was written in 1899 and it was first performed in 1901. And it was first published in 1906. So it is an old play. I mean, it's like yesterday from my perspective, but from your perspective, it's an old play. Now, part of the reason I wanted to do this is because it has a very different perception of Cleopatra and Caesar, but Cleopatra is the one who it is massively different to every other performance of Cleopatra that you will ever find. Every single one completely different, because George Bernard Shaw was interested in power, not romance or sex. He's not talking about that. And Cleopatra is a figure who gets reduced down, much like Helen of Troy, to being nothing but a sexual being. She is if Helen is the face that, launched 1,000 ships, and Cleopatra is the woman that men tore apart an empire for. In spite of the fact that Cleopatra was incredibly brilliant, she was one of the few Ptolemies, if not the only Ptolemy, to actually speak the ancient Egyptian language. She spoke multiple languages, which meant she could talk to ambassadors in their own language, so she couldn't get, screwed over by translators. She was a very brilliant and astute leader who happened to throw her lot in with the losing side of ultimately a very, very long Roman civil war. intergenerational Roman civil war that had really, you know, Sulla and people well before Caesar had really set the beginning of that. So you have that aspect, and that aspect sort of eclipses everything else in her history. And George Bernard Shaw is really interesting because he doesn't have a play that is about this sex goddess. He has a play about a young ruler trying to work out how to exercise power and being mentored by an older, experienced ruler. Caesar is mentoring Cleopatra. And so it is about power. So I'm not going to recap the play in really deep detail, because I think we all know the sketch of the story of Caesar and Cleopatra fairly well. So, but we start in Alexandria, where the Egyptians are quite abuzz because Caesar is coming. The Romans are coming to Egypt, and they're very, very frightened of the Romans being in Egypt because Caesar is this great conquering force. Pompey has fled ahead of Caesar to Ptolemy in hope of sanctuary, and Caesar is following. This is part of the whole Roman civil wars. And Cleopatra has left the palace and she's hiding at the Sphinx. Cleopatra and Caesar meet in the night at the Sphinx. Cleopatra doesn't recognize Caesar, but Caesar works out pretty quickly who she is. He goes and talks to one of the sphinxes, and a voice talks back to him, "Oh, old man, come. Caesar's coming, and the Romans, and they'll eat us." And it's terrible. She is very clearly very, very young. She's a teenage girl. And her brother is even younger. He's a child. But she's, come, old man, how are we going to deal with this? And Caesar very cannily is figured out who she is. He figures out, this is the Queen of Egypt I'm talking to, and he promises to show her how to behave in greeting Caesar. And she is actually very frightened of this, but this old man, it fills her with confidence to go, and she takes him to the palace. And, you know, is it usually dark like this? Oh no, my tutors don't let my nurse and that don't let me order it out. And then order them. Order the lamp. Order the torches lit. Order your robes. So he is instructing her to be a queen, to be the one in charge, because at the moment both of these potential rulers of Egypt are really being puppeted by their guardians. Cleopatra by her nurse Fatatatita, which is a name that everybody gets wrong. It's a running joke that only Cleopatra knows how to say Fatatatita's name. And Ptolemy by his guardians. So we have Cleopatra sort of, okay, how do I stand? How do I speak when I meet Caesar? And Caesar talks to her how you do this so that he sees you as Queen of Egypt, since that is the claim you are wanting. And then the Romans come in, and Caesar is the old man. And she's lost all her fear of him, all her fear of Caesar. In the second act, we meet Ptolemy. We discover the rivalry between factions in the Egyptian household, that Ptolemy and Cleopatra both claim the throne, that the the army and others follow Ptolemy, and actually Cleopatra is quite isolated within the court. We also discover that Ptolemy has decided that I know what a good present for Caesar will be is Pompey's head, which, as I think just about every production decides that this is disgusting and we're not going to be really cool about this, and Caesar is not cool about this. And he is rebuked by the I think he's the Roman governor who, he's a Roman in charge who's been placed in a position, an important position in Egypt. He's charged with what did you do in Gaul, and Caesar is, sufficiently humbled by this, but he doesn't take revenge. And this whole thing is very much about good leadership. Now, the real Caesar, because the real Caesar and the real Cleopatra, they're down here, and they give me commentary and ta-ta-ta throughout the whole thing. It's wonderful fun. You know I do this. But we all know the real Caesar was quite a genocidal maniac, in Gaul especially. But, this is George Bernard Shaw's Caesar. And Caesar does say that he definitely scrubs up much better in the hands of this Irishman than in reality. And even his own testimony, which is decidedly flattering. But agents of Ptolemy leave. They're hostile to Caesar and the Romans. And Cleopatra, Caesar has thrown his lot in with Cleopatra, or Cleopatra has thrown her lot in with Caesar. So we now have this power struggle. We have, Act 3 is mostly battles. It has the taking of the lighthouse, or the siege of the lighthouse, and Cleopatra rolled up in a rug, which is definitely a Plutarch thing. And we also have the Sicilian who comes in. He's quite fun. But really the big crux of things happens actually not in the fourth act. The actual development of the concept of power really comes into the fourth act, because it's in the fourth act after Cleopatra has been forced to swim for the boats with Caesar and the Sicilian, whose name I cannot remember, but that's okay. She is now attempting to. The palace is under siege by Egyptian forces. Caesar has been holding them back for about 6 months, hoping for essentially Roman reinforcements arriving. But inside the palace, Cleopatra has been speaking with Caesar every day, and she's been attempting to model her way of ruling the palace, ruling her women after Caesar. And the women mock this. And think it quite funny, the way she is behaving, because it's not the way that they are used to. But Fatetita has taken bribes to who gets to see Cleopatra, and the guardian of her brother comes and wants to see her. And he accuses her of being nothing more than than wanting to be Caesar's puppet, of selling out the country to him, of wanting Caesar gone so that she can put herself on the throne and act as a puppet of Rome, as a client monarch, which is like, yeah, fair enough. It's exactly what it is. when she doesn't really bite at him, he then goes to Caesar and tells Caesar essentially the same sorts of things. And he's forced to tell these in front of Cleopatra, and Caesar is like, okay. Okay. You got your freedom to just, you have been able to leave for whenever you want. Why are you hanging about to tell me stuff I already know? Go. And he tells Rufio to, just get rid of him. Take him, send him. We don't want him. Cleopatra, however, has been deeply affronted by his behavior and his telling on her to Caesar. And she tells Fatatatita to kill him. Now, Fatatatita and her Ptolemy's guardian are both basically trying to become puppet masters of their young monarchs. Fatatatita is planning on becoming a puppet master of Cleopatra. You can see that through her, filtering who gets to see Cleopatra, taking bribes, that sort of thing. And the Ptolemy's guardian is doing exactly the same sorts of thing. They're both expecting to be this. But Cleopatra is young and naive and doesn't really realize this. And so when she tells Fatatatita to her brother's guardian, she is acting out of revenge for being embarrassed. Caesar brushes off what he says, like, it's only natural that you would want me gone and to rule your kingdom in your own right. I mean, of course, I'm not stupid. I've been around long enough. You don't want to have me hanging off your heels. You want, Egypt is a client kingdom of Rome, but you'd like to have the whole job for yourself. Understandable, which it is. But Cleopatra can't let this go, and so she has Fatatatita kill Philinus, I think it is. So they're having a big banquet. Rufio and Cleopatra and Caesar and Britannicus, his British slave. And during this meal, they hear a scream and a thud as the guardian is murdered. This brings the mob, because this was a popular man in the Egyptian government. He has now been unceremoniously murdered. Cleopatra is, when questioned about this, tries the you'll help me, blah 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 blah, like really puts on the waterworks, because she realizes from Caesar's reaction she's done the wrong thing. She has totally done the wrong thing. And when the mob comes, it becomes clear that it's not going to be easy to hold the palace with the numbers that they have, against the Egyptian army, because it was basically Caesar's diplomacy keeping everything in check. But by killing this man out of revenge, not good. Rufio has also worked out that it was Fatatatita who killed him, and he has killed Fatatatita. Now, he doesn't get condemned for this killing, because Caesar sees this killing, and we don't find out this till towards the end, but Caesar sees this killing as a just killing. That Fatatatita was a dangerous, destabilizing player who allows Cleopatra to give in to her worst possible impulses. So she is in some ways representing all the worst vices of power. And so by getting rid of her, you've taken away a tool of revenge and the worst excesses of power that Cleopatra had, which she had indulged in and Caesar had disapproved, and she had felt wrong. She instantly knew that what she had done was, oh, this is not going to be approved of. I value Caesar's approval. Oh, bugger. Not good. The mob, it turns out, are just a mob because the reinforcements are finally coming and the army has gone out to meet them. So Caesar is ultimately victorious. Cleopatra is put on the throne and Caesar is leaving Alexandria. Caesar does put Cleopatra on the throne because she has learned how to wield power. So it's very much not a play about romance and love. Romance and love is hinted at. I will send you Mark Antony. Caesar in this play is very well aware of the difference between the 17-year-old queen and his 50-year-old self, and it is frequently joked about. He jokes about or you know, there is a comment made about the fact that he wears his laurel leaves because he's balding, and that he's self-conscious about this. Cleopatra is both because she's at a very cuspy age. She is both childish and womanly at the same time. She flips between the two. You really see this childishness come out in her when she realizes she's done the wrong thing by having Philinus killed. So the whole play is about not love but power, and very particularly it's about learning how to use power. So this is something that I can relate to as a young goddess when I newly arrived down here before my horns had grown in. When I newly arrived down here, I had to learn how to be a queen. I mean, this place doesn't run itself. It does not run itself. And, you know, I mean, it's kind of a unique thing. It's a very unique thing. I have servants who, well, they're indestructible, but they're also insubordinate. You can't flatter them. You can't make nice with them because, well, they're demons. They don't really have manners. You can't teach them manners. It would be antithetical to their nature. They are the netherworld's version of nymphs and satyrs and things. I mean, they're pretty unruly topside. They're even more unruly down here, and boy, they're ugly. I mean, the upside is that you honestly, you could shove them in the furnace, incinerate them, and they pop back up. I mean, they respawn very easily. But managing them, plus the dead, had to work out how to manage the dead. You honestly, you know, you just give yourself a headache if you spend all your time screaming at them. You really can't do that. You have to make an example of one, and then all the others fall in the line. Of course, over the millennia, I have had to get very, very inventive with that example. Fortunately, people are always coming down here to give me new ideas. You humans are very, very inventive. I mean, previously we had just sort of gone, well, we'll send you topside and stick you in the sun. I mean, they don't like that. But, I mean, there are so many more ways to show examples of them. Oh, whew. Besides, sending them topside isn't really a great idea, because all that happens is that occasionally some of them get away and then they mate with humans, and then you end up with vampires, and they're really nightmare-y having. I mean, they're just a problem. We have to ship them down to Tartarus. I mean, honestly, they are the worst. Absolute worst. But, so we don't do that one anymore. But anyway, I had to learn how to be a queen. And learning how to be a queen is about learning how to stay in your power. It's about learning your inherent value and making other people see your value. If you can't make sure that people can see your value and treat you with respect, then you are never going to be a leader, no matter how many people you incinerate in the furnace. It's just not going to work. And George Bernard Shaw understood this when he was writing this play. He has a Caesar who is incredibly powerful, who fights wars, who conquers countries, who is brutal in that conquest. Like, so brutal it turned the stomachs of Romans. And they are pretty hard stomachs to turn. But his Caesar is diplomatic, is wise, is calculating. He's not stupid. He's never naive. Even if people think what he is doing, they don't recognize the wisdom of it. Ultimately, the wisdom of it becomes apparent, especially when people do the opposite. The wisdom of Caesar's action or inaction, his clemency, his choosing not to take revenge, is shown as a wisdom rather than a folly. Of course, not taking revenge in a revenge-taking society does get you stabbed, but that's not really part of this story. We've done that one. That's called Julius Caesar. We did that one. We also did Antony and Cleopatra. So this actually brings the complete trilogy together. So you can do all three Caesar and Cleopatra stories and have fun with that. But Caesar shows wise leadership. And he shows leadership that earns him respect. And it's respect, not fear, that is the most important thing when it comes to holding power. At least as far as Shaw seems to be saying. Now, I am certainly respected. I am greatly respected, but I earned that respect. I mean, sure, you can punish all you want, but fear and respect are not the same thing. Fear breeds revolt. Fear breeds revolt. Respect is, she's hard, but she's fair. You can't actually fault what happened. Warned, there would be consequences. They went anyway. Consequences. That's harsh but fair. And I don't do things on a petty manner. People do try my patience, especially the Milwaukee family players at times. Just because we had to put some in drag does not make me a bully. It's not my fault there aren't enough women in their cast to fill out Cleopatra's women. Not that they made great women anyway, great hairy beasts in drag. They're very, very, very poor showing. Very poor showing. honestly. So, but they whine. They whine. They should know by now to treat me with more respect, but no, they are constantly. I honestly don't know what to do with them. Maybe we need a few more rounds of Brecht. They never like that. Or we just keep learning new plays. They don't like that either. That one works, and I get more plays. But I think that the other thing, especially when you look at when this play was written, and this is something that is a play that not a lot is written about. So it's actually, it's kind of difficult to work out exactly what Shaw was saying. It's although it's a really great play, it doesn't seem to be one that has a lot of contemporary notice, which is it really is a shame, because it's quite a contemporary play. I mean, power and the wielding of power is always a contemporary issue. How you use power justly. And I think there are a couple of ways that you can view this. But I think for me, the way that I think this was being read, the way I read this, is given the time period and given what Shaw was as a writer, I viewed this through a feminist lens. So Caesar has the power. He is the patriarch with power. He is literally an old man with power. And then you have Cleopatra, who is a young, capable, intelligent woman who is trying to step into her power. She has a lot of lack of recognition of her rightful public position. According to all the men in the Egyptian court, she should be nothing but a consort to her brother, not a monarch in her own right, but she has an ambition to be monarch in her own right, not her brother's consort, but actually leader. So I see her as the women wanted, the women after suffrage. And I think this is why Fatatatita dies, because Shaw is talking about there are two different powers. There is the old power that you had, which is represented by Fatatatita. The old power of the old power of subterfuge, of domestic control, of petty slights and revenges. This power, this what is considered sort of traditional vindictive female power, the power of manipulation, which she tries on Caesar when he realizes who she has had killed. This is the kind of power that women have traditionally had. But to go out into the world, to earn a place in the world, to earn that position as a member of society, she has to learn to wield the kind of power that society will respect. And the kind of power that society will respect is the kind of power represented by Caesar. And it's important that it's the power represented by Caesar, not by men. Because there are no other men but Caesar who remonstrate with her revenge killing. Caesar is representing a new form of power. It is a power of clemency, a power of magnanimity. It is a power that is thoughtful, diplomatic, that thinks through the consequences of behavior. It is an adult power, and it's not gendered. It's not gendered. To a lot of male characters in this play, Caesar looks like he is using weak, womanly power. So even though Caesar is the most powerful man in the room, the way he is wielding his power is not, again, through fear and intimidation. It is through being the most respected person in that room, and he is earning that respect through his clemency, through his generosity. Not at all through, I have a big stick, because for most of the time he doesn't have the big stick. His forces are underwhelming compared to the Egyptian forces. He can use his battle strategy to keep himself above water, but he is desperately waiting on those Roman reinforcements to come. He does not have the big stick of traditional male power, violence to use. And ironically, it's Cleopatra and Fatatatita who use violence, but they use violence without thinking of the consequences of that violence. That almost throws everyone into a worse situation were it not for a Deus Ex Machina army. So Caesar is prudent. Caesar is thinking several steps ahead and not thinking with his ego, because everybody thinks that Caesar is going to be greatly hurt that Cleopatra wants him gone and running her own country herself. And he's like, no, of course she does. Duh. He's not using his ego as power. He is thinking of what is going to work best in this situation to keep this stable and what will work for Rome. Because having the status quo will not work, because you can't have the two of them, because they are too factional. You will have Egypt descend into civil war, and Rome cannot afford for Egypt to descend into a chaotic civil war, because Rome is dependent on Egyptian grain. So he is thinking not only what is good for this country, but what is good for the greater empire, my country in particular. So we see a ruler who has to think more than just the small and the domestic. When you are out in the world, you are thinking more than just yourself. To gain respect, you need to act in a respectful way, in a way that will earn respect. So I think it can be seen just as much about moving from that very sheltered domestic place which women were in, which is very much like childhood in the late 19th century. It was very much a childhood world, a chaperoned world, into a fully independent and functional position in society. And to do that, you have to leave behind the manipulative power tools of childhood to take up the actual power tools of power. Power tools makes it sound like an electric drill or a cordless screwdriver. But the tools of power as a fully functional adult, which means taking responsibility for one's actions and thinking about how one's actions actually also affect others. It is a really interesting play from that perspective, and it is about real power. It's not about, all the other kinds of power that people have been talking about lately. This one is about real power. This one is about how do you actually use real power, because real power is a responsibility. It is not just, I have power. If I went on a power crazed trip, this place would go to rack and ruin. The dead would be disappearing upstairs and scaring everybody witless, topside. And, goodness knows if they get upstairs, that would cause a great kerfuffle. As I've said, I am not a fan of humans, being able to go upstairs. They all belong down here. This toing and froing, I'm not a fan. I am not a fan. It makes my life harder. Makes my life harder. I am not a fan of this management change. Just, I don't mean to complain, but I just think that it should be said. It was never my idea. Much easier to work on them if they're all down here. That asphodel's field, empty. Not happy at all about that. Asphodel needs the dead walking on it. Do you know how hard it is? And I can promise you, we do not have people down here who are worthy to work on the asphodel field. They're only walking on it to, keep it alive. Not happy at all about that. We have to have a whole sticker chart to work out who gets to walk on it. I am the ruler of the dead. I should not be running a sticker chart like a kindergarten teacher to keep the dead behaving well enough to keep the asphodel alive. Not happy about that. Ultimate power is a headache at times, especially when people make changes without foreseeing the consequences of those changes. Anyway, that is Caesar and Cleopatra, a play about power, not romance, and a Cleopatra who is about rulership, not sex. So, check it out if you want. Well worth it, in my opinion. And I will be back again with another play. Not sure what though. I'll have a think about it. Maybe we'll do something truly ancient. We haven't done anything truly ancient for a long while. I think we've only done one. We did Oedipus. So I think maybe we might do some more of Oedipus's story. I know we definitely have some of that. So I think I'll bring you some really ancient stuff next time. Until then, bye-bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.